What's going on, guys? I'm Tommy, and I'm coming at you with an action figure review. Today I'm going to be reviewing Hasbro The Black Series Gaming Greats, KX Security Droid Enforcer, and Droideka from Jedi Survivor. If you guys know me, I am a massive fan of both Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. I, funnily enough, didn't even play Jedi Survivor until a couple years after it came out. I think I played it, honestly, sometime this year, and I loved that game as much, if not more, than I loved Jedi Fallen Order. And so it's been really fun that Hasbro's been releasing, in many cases and through multi-packs, a lot of the enemies that you fight, and I really love that they've been building out the faction of the Bedlam Raiders. What those guys are a faction of mercenaries that you fight on the main hub world of Kobo, and basically they're a bunch of separatist droids that were repurposed into being Bedlam Raiders. This pack is an Amazon exclusive here in the United States in 2025. I picked this up on a pre-order, and it got delivered from Amazon to my house on the day of recording this review. This pack was also a little bit pricier as far as the 2-pack pricing goes, MSRP, because the Droideka is considered a deluxe figure. So taking a look at the packaging, this is the 2-pack style packaging for the Black Series. However, this is a little different. You'll see it's a little bit of a deeper box, and that's so that it can house the Droideka in there comfortably. On the front of the box, you do have the Black Series logo, as well as a big plastic window showing you both the figures and some of the accessories for the security droid here. On the front of the window as well, you also have the Gaming Greats sticker here. On the side, in vertical text, you have the names of both characters, and then down below you have the name of the game these guys are from in the Gaming Greats subline color. You have some logos and legalese down at the bottom. On this side of the packaging, you have your mural art here. So on this particular packaging, it is a split mural art design so that they can fit the murals for both characters there. From about the chest up, I think both of them look really cool, especially the Droideka there, and you have the characters' names down at the bottom. On the back of the box, we have both of those mural images, but you can see much more of them. They are blown up a bit as well. You have your Jedi Survivor logo down here, Black Series logo, character names, and a bio in about 1,000 different languages. This bio reads, "Baton-wielding security droid enforcers were designed primarily to train Imperial stormtroopers in the use of the Electro Baton. Clad in bronzium armor and protected by a powerful shield, the Colicoid-made Droideka are a terror on the battlefield." Down here again, you have the name of the game in that subline color, and then you have more legalese. Guys, please, for the love of God, don't feed these action figures to your babies. On this side of the box, you're going to have your Gaming Greats logo at the top, some wraparound window there, that banner, and your Black Series logo. On the bottom, even more legalese, and on the top, nothing. That about wraps it up for the packaging, so let's get these guys opened and we'll check them out. Alright guys, here is this 2-pack out of the box, and I have to say there's a lot of plastic here between these two figures. You have two larger characters in the same 2-pack. I'm really excited to check both of these out, so I think before we take a look at the figures, let's first take a look at the accessories. No accessories, of course, with the Droideka. There are 2 accessories technically for the KX security droid, so we'll take a look at those first. Our security droid comes with a little backpack attachment here. We have seen this from a previous release of this droid. I believe the other one was also a Jedi Survivor release. It was the black version of this same droid, and I will show that in the later comparison for the review here. But this one is painted a little differently. Obviously, this droid is a different color than most of your KX security droids are. This guy's like a little bit more of like almost a tan khaki color, and so you have some really nice colors going on here with this lighter orangish color for these little power packs here. I take it that's what they are. Some nice gunmetal color, and some even like a eggshell color right here as well at the bottom. So you have a little peg system here that plugs into his back, and then you have these nice malleable plastic cords here that are done in the same kind of khaki plastic with all red paint for the cords. These bend really nicely. As you can see, they're very malleable. I'm not worried about them snapping or breaking at the base here, and that's what we want to see for pieces like this. Our security droid also comes with his weapon that he uses in-game, which is the little Electro Baton here. This Electro Baton has been released several times over over in the Gaming Greats line with different shock troopers, different other versions of the KX security droid, so really no surprise here. It's got a little loose blue electric effect here that can be moved up and down the shaft of the top of the weapon, but the weapon can also be collapsed here, which I think is pretty cool, so you can have it extended for more of a ranged position, and you can also have it collapsed. So overall, there's no paint on this or anything. We've seen this accessory a few times, and it looks pretty nice. We will set our Droideka off to the side while we take a closer look at our security droid here. So you'll see this guy stands pretty tall. He towers over most of your 6-inch figures. I will say right out the gate, I know that previous releases of figures that have been made on this body sculpt have had issues with loose ankle joints. So far out of the box, I have not had that issue with this KX droid in particular. I know they've kind of course corrected on that with recent releases. However, once we pose him around several ways, that might change. As far as paint apps go, this guy doesn't have a whole lot of weathering, and I will say that's a little bit of a disappointment because in-game, this guy is pretty heavily weathered. He's got a lot going on, but if I have to choose having weathering or none, I guess I'd rather go with the not weathered look, because then if I customize my figures, I can just choose to weather it how I like, instead of getting rid of the lesser quality weathering for what I would do as custom work. Then again, I don't do custom work, so I guess I would prefer this guy be weathered. As far as paint applications go, though, you'll see the head is just done in the standard kind of khaki plastic, I'll keep calling it that. You have white photoreceptors here and a silver piece here for the vocoder and everything like that. You have minimal sculpted detail on this. This is really just a repack of the previous KX security droid, which is a retooled version of the original K2SO way back from when Rogue One came out in 2016. However, this being a dated release, it doesn't really have dated articulation or dated sculpt. I think this figure definitely holds up here in 2025. At the shoulders here, you'll see some more paint applications for where the shoulders meet the carapace of that plating over the chest area. You'll see white Imperial cogs that are painted on the shoulders here. That is done on both the left and the right shoulders. And then you have just some silver paint applications basically at every single joint. Wrist joints, elbow joints. At the midsection here, you can see a lot of the exposed circuitry up in there. You have it also at the hip area, which has some really interesting engineering, which we'll get into in a minute here. And then you have some of those same silver paint applications at the knees and at the ankles. So, I mean, it's very plain, honestly, and as far as, you know, just a basic enemy goes that you fight in-game, honestly, actually, I'd call this more of a mid-tier enemy because of how much health this guy has and how annoying he can be to fight, especially on those harder difficulties. I do think that this is still a fine representation of this character. But yeah, other than that, just a lot of the machinery sculpted into this guy. If you have a K2 droid, if you have a KX droid as well, then you know what you're getting into with this figure. As far as articulation goes on this guy, he's going to have a barbell jointed neck, so you have a ball joint at the top of the neck as well as the bottom there, so you can get plenty of range and attitude out of this guy. He can look down really well, especially for characters that are going to be shorter than him. Him to be able to look directly down is good. Can he look up? Not really at all, just with the neck joints. You do have some really nice tilt there, and especially with that barbell joint, you can really get that thing to move, and you have some good right and left there as well. At the shoulders, you have just a basic hinge and swivel. So the hinge is going to get you to almost 90 degrees, which is good. The shoulder plating goes and tucks underneath inside of that shoulder piece there, meets the carapace, and it does of course have a 360-degree swivel. You do have very interesting joints here at the elbows. So you do have a swivel both at the top of the elbow and at the bottom of the elbow. So that's going to help giving you a lot of dynamic range, kind of also replaces like a bicep swivel joint, which is a really good added piece there. And there is obviously a hinge. You'll see there is clear plastic on the hinges on both the elbows and the knees and the ankles as well. And that's just to make it more screen accurate because there are negative voids there in the actual in-universe design. The bend at the elbow gets you to about 90 degrees there, maybe just a hair past it. However, you can hyperextend this joint to 90 degrees backwards as well. At the wrists, you're going to have another swivel at the base of the wrist, and you're going to have a hinge. So this is a nice hinge and swivel system, so basically whatever way you move the wrist, you can hinge it up and down. It is technically a horizontal hinge, and it's going to be the same way on both arms. However, it is nice that you have a little bit of option there by being able to swivel it. At the midsection here, you're going to see there is a ball joint that goes up into kind of the middle of the carapace here. That's going to give you some pretty nice range there, and then you can also move that all around, some tilt, swivel, up, down, ab crunch. It's actually got a lot of range for how limited it looks due to the sculpting. The hips are probably the most interesting thing about this whole figure. So you'll see it's really like a barbell joint here. So you'll see that there's this piece in here that looks like it's separate from the leg when it's really not. And it does a great job of hiding the joint inside the hip, and you can see you can get lots of range out of that ball joint at the end of the hip there. Our KX droid is also going to have, similarly to how the elbows work, it's going to be the same with the knees. You're going to have a swivel at the bottom of the thigh and at the top of the lower leg. So you'll be able to get lots of different range out of this guy. And there is, again, that single hinge, which gets you to about the 90-degree mark, and that one can also hyperextend forward slightly past that 90-degree mark, actually. And then, of course, down here at the ankles, you're going to have a hinge, which brings the ankles forward as far as it could possibly go, which is great, and it brings them back plenty as well. And then you'll see there's another hinge in the foot itself, which gives you some lateral movement, so you can move that about 90 degrees in or 90 degrees out. So really, overall, I mean, this guy has, especially for 2016, which, you know, that time was pretty notoriously known for figures with not the best articulation, this droid really does have some nice articulation, and again, those ankle joints seem to be holding up after I've been messing with this guy for a while. We will now set this dude off to the side, and then now we will check out our Droideka. So this is actually only the second time the Droideka has ever been released in the Black Series line. We got a brand new Droideka as a deluxe release, I want to say last year in 2024, and now we've gotten our first repaint. I really like the Droideka, so I already know I'm gonna like this figure, but man, look how intricate these Bedlam Raider colors look on this guy. I mean, I love how this color scheme looks on this particular droid. On the, I guess I'll call it the head of the figure here, you will see that this photoreceptor is a little warped, nothing a little hot water can't fix. You do have red painted for the photoreceptors here, and then you have a little bit of silver, some black for that cord there, but that really nice, reminds me of like a beetle, and it's not just the way the droid is shaped, it's also just the color scheme with that nice, almost brick color they've gone with the silver and the off-white, again, that like eggshell color. Looks really nice, and you have the black highlights in there too. It's got some really nice designs, and I think it looks really good on the figure. A lot of the raw machinery on the inside of our Droideka is going to just be in a dull silver color. That's fine by me. It looks metallic enough, and I don't need this thing to be hot off the assembly line shiny. I mean, this is a repurposed droid from a fallen separatist cruiser, so we know that this guy's probably not going to be the cleanest to begin with. I really love how the cords, though, are painted. These are, again, some really nice durable, malleable plastic here, so as you move the figure around, all these little pieces of tubing are not going to be breaking off because they're so brittle. I love the paintwork that's been done on these blaster cannons on the hands here, the quote-unquote hands, I should say, for the droid. I mean, just look at all that little kind of like almost gold color there, and again, that brick color for all the outer plating, really bringing out a lot of awesome detail on this guy. And just the subtle hit of gold here at like the shoulder joint of the droid here looks great. The bottom ball of the droid too has some similar markings to the top here, and it looks really nice. There's really, this is a very visually pleasing droid, and honestly, out of all the Bedlam Raider droids, this guy looks, honestly, dare I say, the best. I really like the brick color at the tips of each of the feet here too, and there's all that gold there at all of the hinges. I think they really knocked this one out of the park as far as paint goes. I really am impressed with it. Now, this guy was a little folded up in the box here, so you'll see these little pieces, which are the shield generators actually for the droid. They are folded in on some hinges, and you'll see that these can fold out, and that's how we'll leave him for the display. You'll see that brick color on the outside of the plating as well. And then the other thing I did notice is there is a little kind of like slot that pulls out so that you can get this guy's head fully extended here, and that's what the droid's going to look like in more of the attack mode. This is kind of what you're more familiar with this kind of a droid, is seeing him a little more like this. And honestly, I think that it really adds to how this figure looks, and I think honestly we're about to get into articulation for this guy, and this thing is really an engineering marvel of the Black Series line, truly. So there's no real good way for me to go about covering the articulation. How I'll start though is at the neck here. So you have a ball joint at the head. You can see you can get all kinds of range out of this. You can get him to look up, down, left, right. You can even get some tilt out of that there. Looks awesome. Now look at all of these hinges hinges that kind of work together to really bring this figure together. This is also to help it get into like the rolling mode, which I will get into in a bit. But if you look here, so you have a joint up here, you have a joint down here, and you have one that kind of connects them here, and there's another base joint here, all with these little metal dowels in there. And if you look at how it just, everything moves, it is really quite impressive how this all moves together, and I'm very, very impressed with how the Hasbro team engineered this figure. It's very visually pleasing, honestly. You're also going to see a little bit of a ratcheted hinge here at the top of the kind of torso here, and then same with the bottom, there is another ratcheted hinge there, so you can move him forward and back and really get a lot of dynamic out of how this guy poses around. So the hip joints are interesting on the two front legs here. You'll see you have hinges that move forward and back. However, on the back leg, that one is kind of planted there. But at the, I guess, the top of the leg here, near the hip, what we would call the hip, you do have some hinges there as well. Those have plenty of range, and that goes for all three legs too. Those are, I would guess, slightly ratcheted because they do kind of like pop into place at different points. And then you have another one here down at like the toe joint, and you have some really nice range forward and back for each of those. And honestly, I'll just go ahead and say, like, this figure remains one of my favorite figures just to like take off the shelf and pose around just for fun. Even if I'm not really changing the poses that this figure is in, it is so much fun just to move this guy around and have him, you know, just walking, rolling, you name it. But let's try getting this guy into his rolling mode here. Before I forget, let's actually talk about the arms here as well. So much to talk about with this figure. So you have, again, shoulder joints that kind of move forward and back. Those also have hinges that slightly move up and down. You do, however, have another hinge here which moves up and down, a kind of like bicep swivel movement here. And then look at these little faux hydraulics here, how these pistons move in and out as you bring those kind of double jointed elbows, I'll call them, up and down. That is absurd, the level of movement and just all of the engineering. When you pose this figure around, it actually feels like a machine that's moving, and honestly makes it feel so premium for this line, and I love it. Now, getting this guy into the ball mode is interesting, so that's kind of part of the reason that this all coils up here. So what I imagine you do is you want to get this guy into as much of a ball as you can, and in doing so, you're going to want to bring all of this forward here. So we're going to take the midsection like I just did, bring that forward, rolled up into kind of a ball. Not really well, but I mean, it works pretty nicely. All you gotta do is curl the legs in, and you know, curl all the pieces together, curl the arms in, and it gives in effect. But being honest, I'm not going to pose this figure in the ball mode anyway. That was never my intention with this guy, so I'm just happy to have the figure that looks really good and is really, again, like an engineering marvel for the Black Series, if I'm being honest. Setting our Droideka off to the side once again, we'll now check out our security droids. Let's get this backpack on. There's corresponding peg holes for the pegs. There is a right and wrong way to put this on, and then you just take these little malleable kind of cuffs and just strap them onto the droid's arm. One's going to go around the upper arm, and the other one's going to go around the lower arm. Ideally, you're going to want that red cord to kind of be behind the figure, just for the sake of articulation. And as you can see, you can get this guy to bring his arm out all the way. You don't have to worry about that coming off, and you can honestly bring his arm pretty far forward too without having to worry about that falling off. And then as far as our melee weapon goes for this guy, we can fit that into the right hand pretty nicely here. It's a pretty good grip here, passes the shake test, and of course we'll take that weapon and we'll get it extended for attack mode so that this guy can be a very difficult enemy for us to defeat. Let's get both these guys posed up a few ways, shall we? Here we've got our Droideka posed up with our security droid in some nice battle poses here. I think these look great. These are honestly good contenders for the shelf for me. Another thing I'm noticing is if there wasn't enough articulation on this Droideka, there's a swivel at the top at that hip joint. That is crazy. Just again, just the level of detail on this guy is insane as far as articulation goes. Now I do have the KX security droid in a one-legged pose here. This can be really difficult to achieve because he's so top heavy, but thankfully with those ankle joints being a lot tighter on this particular release as opposed to the looser ones on previous releases, you can still achieve this pose with relative ease. And just for size comparison, here's what this pack looks like with some other characters from this game. You got Cal Kestis, BD1, you have the B1 battle droid, you have Dagan Gera, and here I have them both next to a couple more comparisons, the B2 Super Battle Droid with the rocket arm and the Bedlam Raiders Magna Guard. And for another comparison, here is our KX Security Droid Enforcer compared with, on the left, the recent K2SO release that came out as an Andor figure, and on the right here, the Gaming Greats KX security droid from the same game. And then of course here's our Droideka next to the Phantom Menace release of the Droideka. Overall guys, this is a really nice set. I've been really enjoying the fleshing out of a lot of the more minor enemies that you fight in Jedi Survivor, giving my Cal Kestis plenty of options for enemies to be pitted against. All I want now is a Ravis to be leading the charge with all these Bedlam Raider droids. If you're a fan at all of Jedi Survivor, I would say this is probably one of my favorite packs they've released out of all the multi-pack releases from this game, and I think you get some really cool enemy options for Cal Kestis to fight. But with that guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did and you're not yet subscribed, subscribe to Blitz Transmissions. I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. If you're an ARC Trooper in my Patreon, you would have seen this review early if you'd like access to early content, monthly giveaways, and other awesome benefits. The link to my Patreon is in the description below. Become an ARC Trooper for just $4.99 a month. If you're a fan of the reviews I do here on YouTube, or you just want to support the YouTube channel more directly, you could also check out my YouTube channel membership, Rancor Battalion, for just 99 cents a month. It gives you access to exclusive badges and priority replies in my comments section, and you get access to all my reviews early, as opposed to all the content like you get with Patreon. You can also vote on what I review next for the channel, like the Patreon members do. If you'd like some Blitz Transmissions swag, you could head over to the Blitz Transmissions Armory over on Printify. Link to that is in the description below, as well as links to my Discord and all my social media. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll catch you for the next one, and may the Force be with you.
Breaking all units, fire at will. 1-2, pick a target. Too many, Captain. Watch your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody cover me. I got 2 vultures on my tail. Gotta hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. Where's our